What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Dracula, the blood-sucking vampire you know from the movies, right? Let me tell you something that you will be shocked about. In reality, Dracula was actually a very violent and bloodthirsty person who waged war against Mehmed the Conqueror and died. Hard to believe, isn't it? But it is indeed the truth. Dracula's actual name was Vlad, however he was later known as Dracula. His father was Dracul. He ruled Wallachia, which was in the south of modern-day Romania. Murad II started a campaign towards conquering Europe. The Principality of Wallachia was forced to make peace since it didn't have enough strength to withstand the Ottomans. And along with that, the two sons of the ruler were also given to the Ottoman Sultanate. The two children were sent to Edirne to be schooled. One of them was Vlad and the other Radu. Vlad is the child that we know as Dracula. His father's nickname was Dracul, which in Romanian means Satan. Vlad's nickname Dracula means the son of Dracul, in other words, the son of Satan. After listening to this story I'm about to tell you, let's see if he deserves his nickname or not. So, the two brothers arrived in the city of Edirne. That's where they put Vlad through a special education program. Murad I wanted the Romanian child to have a perfect education, hence he had him schooled with Prince Mehmed. Prince Mehmed went through years of rigorous training with his Romanian friend. Together they were taught by the most distinguished instructors in foreign languages, swordsmanship, horseback riding, and the subtleties of government. And in those years, the two Romanian brothers learned about Islam. Thus, Dracula's brother Radu decided to convert to Islam. He memorized the Quran and decided to learn more about Islam. Although Vlad also examined the Quran, he did not become Muslim. After receiving the necessary training, Vlad returned to his home country, but Radu decided to stay. During this time, the family of these two brothers were killed by assassins, and Dracula was the sole heir. He promised loyalty to the Ottoman Sultan and went on to become the ruler of his country. Meanwhile, Mehmed the Conqueror became the Ottoman Sultan and conquered Istanbul. Dracula took his father's place. His sense of revenge flared up. His first order was to kill anyone who might have been involved in the killing of his parents. Time passed. Everything was going well at first. But then, Dracula started to evade paying taxes to the Ottoman Sultanate and also started to break his promises. Finally, he decided to rebel against the Ottoman Sultanate more openly. Dracula became more of an evildoer and started to kill the Ottoman soldiers in the region one by one. And those who opposed him, he had them impaled. Wallachia and Moldavia started to bleed under Dracula's tyrannical rule. One example of this is, Dracula realized that there were many poor people in his country and invited them to dinner. He fed them all to their heart's desire and then asked them, "How else can I help you? Wouldn't you want to get rid of this pain of poverty?" They said yes, all at once. Upon hearing this, Dracula had the doors and windows locked and set the house, which was full of helpless people, on fire. The Ottoman Sultanate sent its ambassadors to find out what was going on. They told Dracula to pay taxes and not to be disloyal. Dracula responded by saying, "If you want to talk with me, take off your turbans." In return, they said, "No, we won't take them off for someone like you." He asked them again. However, they objected to his request. Upon this, Dracula hammered those turbans on their heads with nails. In this way, he killed them all. This was the beginning of a war. As soon as Mehmed the Conqueror heard the news about his ambassadors, he launched a campaign with an army of 200,000. Dracula knew the tactics of the Ottoman army by heart. He knew exactly how to inflict the most damage and how to defend himself. He divided his army into squads as guerrilla tactics and scattered them in different places. The main purpose of this technique was to inflict maximum damage rather than winning the war. They killed the Ottoman soldiers they captured in the mountains one by one and impaled them on stakes. As Mehmed the Conqueror approached the capital, his heart broke at the sight he witnessed. In a forested area stretched along 1.5 kilometers, more than 20,000 soldiers were impaled. There were those who were still alive, those who were dying, and those who cried out in pain. It was like hell on earth. Mehmed the Conqueror, who saw that his troops sent on ahead were impaled, was demoralized. Never mind 20,000 Muslims, even if he had seen a single innocent person like this, how would he have felt? But the matter of fact was that there were 20,000 innocent people that were impaled. The Ottomans came down on Dracula, but he hid in his fortress, which was on a 900-meter high steep mountain. This fortress was hard to reach, kind of like an eagle's nest. It was not practical to try and attack it from below. The siege continued for weeks. Mehmed the Conqueror decided that it was time for him to return to Istanbul. He left a few troops behind and headed towards Istanbul. During this time, Dracula's wife found the atmosphere inside the fortress unbearable and hence jumped off the side of the fortress, and one night, Vlad managed to escape to Hungary. Hungarians who had received their share of his tyranny imprisoned Vlad as soon as he arrived. He spent 12 years in prison. Vlad, who is more famously known as Dracula, was missing for a long time. During those years, things changed in Europe. At last, the king of Hungary released him and married him to one of his relatives. Later, he asked Vlad to change his religion, and he accepted that. Together with Dracula, they conquered many Ottoman fortresses over the period of 2 years. They killed many Ottoman soldiers, and exactly 14 years later, Dracula was seen in Wallachia again. With the support of foreign troops, he gained the throne again. His people, after finding out that he was back, were resentful. Of course, Mehmed the Conqueror was also informed about this. Mehmed the Conqueror sent Dracula's brother Radu on behalf of the Ottoman Sultanate, but he wasn't able to obtain any sort of result. Upon this, the Ottoman Sultanate assembled its soldiers in Wallachia, and finally, Ottoman troops cornered Dracula in the forest of Transylvania. It is believed that Dracula was killed there. Another view is that he was killed during this war by his own people. Dracula, a person who committed such horrific acts during his reign, those that no other person would even think of doing, was legendized as a vampire because of the amount of blood he shed and because of his desire to spill blood. He has been the subject of many movies. Which era these movies originate from is unknown and forgotten. In history, there are many unusual events, and this is one of them. Do you think Vlad deserved the nickname Dracula, the son of Satan? And how could it be that even though he was schooled with Mehmed the Conqueror, he became one of his greatest enemies? Can atrocity, shedding blood, and causing oppression really delight one? Many questions come to one's mind. I will be here with more interesting videos. Stay tuned.